Thank you, Erin, and welcome everybody. I have the honor of introducing our intern that we have supported through the Horticulture Society. Sharon Zarate, as Erin mentioned, is our intern. Was our intern this past year, and she is about to graduate from Cal Poly Pomona this spring. She's getting a bachelor's degree in biology, and she has an emphasis in botany. After a trip to Death Valley when she was working at going to school at a community college, she took a class in desert biology. And during that trip, she became fascinated with native plants of California, particularly those of the desert. And it really influenced her path when she was going back to school and moving on to Cal Poly. And now her goal is to pursue a career in plant conservation. Her internship at the Theodore Payne Foundation gave Sharon some of the hands-on outdoor opportunities that she hadn't had up to that point, and also the opportunity to view conservation through a horticultural lens, while also drawing on her background in more the hard sciences and her laboratory work. So she's going to briefly share with us some of her experiences during her internship at Theodore Payne Foundation with us right now. So welcome, Sharon.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get my PowerPoint up for you guys. So hi, my name is Sharon Zarate, and today I will be presenting a little bit about my internship at the Theodore Payne Foundation that was sponsored by SoCal Hort. So let me get started. So a little bit about me. There isn't really much for me to say that hasn't already been said. I am graduating this semester with my BS in biology, so I'm really excited about that. And I guess for me, like applying for this internship was really interesting and a really huge opportunity for me to actually learn about how conservation works within a horticulture lens, as Carol mentioned. Just because up to that point, most of my experience has been kind of more academia based. So being able to actually see how these native geophytes are propagated was like a really fun experience. And so for my internship, it was a total of 10 weeks. And initially it was supposed to be a consecutive 10 weeks, but my supervisors, Jenny Arnold and Tim Becker, had asked me if I was okay with actually splitting it into 3 sections. That way I can get a full gist of like the bulb growing cycle and all of that. So being in a pandemic and then doing schooling online, I was like, well, sure, why not? It's not like I have anything else to do. And so we did split it into 3 sections. And the first part was just bulb sifting and doing inventory to prep those bulbs so they can be stored or prepared for cold stratification before moving on to the second phase, which was propagating and doing a little bit of seed sowing as well. And the third phase was assessing what grew and what didn't, and taking note of what kind of improvements could be done to increase the success rates of the bulbs that did not grow. And so for the first section, I did 4 weeks doing some bulb sifting. And in this photo, you can kind of see I'm holding a California State bulb. And that was kind of one of the first species that I got acquainted with. And it was actually really interesting for me to kind of actually get a closer experience taking note of like different morphology of the bulbs, just because I've never really had that experience looking at these species in their bulb and seed forms. So that was really interesting for me. And so for this first picture right here, I kind of have a really funny story about it because I like to call this particular species part of my hazing ritual, because this was one of the first seed flats that I had picked up during my internship to actually sift. And, you know, compared to like this first picture right here with the Calicortis plumeri, I figured, well, all the bulbs should probably be that similar size and coloring as well. So it should be relatively easy to pick them out from this perlite, right? Well, I was wrong. So in this photo, I know it's really hard to see, so I circled each bulb that's in this photo. And as you can see, they're pretty much similar in size and coloring of the perlite. So that was a real fun experience for me. but for the rest of the species, it was really fun to actually kind of see the little the similarities and comparing the bulbs from similar genuses and different species as well. So kind of have two photos here of Diclostema. You have the little volubile here and the capitatum. And as you can kind of see within the soil itself, they are pretty easy to, you know, sift out from soil as opposed to that bloom area I showed you guys earlier. And so for phase 2, I did 3 weeks of propagation. And in this photo right here, I do have some little bulbs that were getting ready to be covered up to prepare for growing. And for this phase, it was really interesting for me to actually see the bulbs that I had stored in the previous phase, getting ready to actually just grow and lay down their roots and all of that. So in this photo right here, I do have an allium bulb, and you can kind of see right here that they have that that root growth ready to come out. So that was really exciting. And then right here, we also have some Fritillaria biflora. And as you can see, even before putting them in the soil, they were ready to get out of that cold and into the dirt. So, and then for phase 3, that was the last 3 weeks that I did earlier this year. And so for this phase, again, I was doing a lot of growth assessments and seeing what grew, what didn't, doing more inventory checks to make sure that all the species that were identified previously during the storage phase were actually identified properly once they grew, because there were some mistakes that were made during that time. And so I'll just be sharing some of the flowers that grew during this time. And this is one of the bulbs that I actually worked on, one of the first bulbs that I worked on. So we had the Diclostema volubile. And I really, really loved just seeing that kind of characteristic binding of the stem for this particular species. So it's just really exciting to actually see that, since I haven't actually seen these out hiking myself. And then this was one of the first Calicortis species that bloomed at the bulb house. So this is Calicortis monophyllus. And one of the things that I actually learned while working with these Calicortis was that they're actually pretty difficult to photograph with an iPhone, just because trying to get that field of depth with all the little hairs was kind of troublesome. So apologies if my photos are not the greatest. And so this was just like a very beautiful flower to actually see as like the first Calicortis that bloomed in the bulb house. And then I'll be sharing some more Calicortis species with you guys. So here's the Cataline. And again, just trying to take photos of all the details in there, kind of analyzing the differences between each particular species, and just really love taking photos of the nectaries as well. Like I am fascinated with the nectaries on each of these. And then so we have some globe lilies right here. We have Calicortis albus, and we have that red variation here. So again, beautiful, beautiful species. I really enjoyed watching these bloom, because you can kind of tell early on that they have that little curve right before they're about to pop, and it's just super cool to see. And so we have Calicortis clavitus here. And again, taking a photo here to actually look at the nectaries, which I'm, again, super fascinated with. Like, I just think they're really neat. And then with the Calicortis venestus, I really enjoyed actually seeing the different color variations with this particular species. So we did have like 3 different types in the bulb house. So we kind of had this one with the red coloring, again, taking photos of the little nectary on the outside there, and then these 2 different color variations, which were really cool to see. And I wish I could definitely share more photos that I had taken, but I don't really have too much time to go over all of that in detail. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I'd like to give a special thanks to the SoCal Hort for making this internship possible. And of course, a big, big thank you to the Theodore Payne Foundation and Jenny Arnold and Tim Becker for being like the best mentors I could ask for here. So it was a really great experience, and I'm really grateful for it. So thank you. Now I'll leave you guys with this little last photo here.
Well, thank you, Sharon. I thought your photos were absolutely beautiful. And, your experience with your internship brought back some wonderful memories for me when I was plant propagator quite some time ago at the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden, and my first experience with some of those very same species, and the treasure hunt aspect of sorting bulbs, which I still do occasionally with, when I grow them myself. So yeah, it can be a lot of fun and a Zen experience in a way.
It actually is very therapeutic. I found
Yep.
out it was just,
Yeah.
I could do it for hours, honestly.
Yeah.
And I did, but
Well, it's a good thing you got into it, because
yeah.
some people might think it was tedious. Well, thank you so much for that